Have you ever felt intensely homesick for a place you've never actually been?
Oh, wow. Yeah, that's a heavy question.
Right. It's that quiet, totally unexplainable ache that just, I don't know, hits you right in the middle of a busy day.
Yeah.
Like you could be surrounded by friends, successful in your career, totally plugged into the digital world, and yet there's this lingering whisper of an infinite void.
Yeah, that quiet emptiness.
Exactly. So today, we are diagnosing that exact feeling in our deep dive. We're exploring a profoundly personal question, which is basically, why are we here?
Which is the ultimate question, really.
It is, and we're looking at a framework today that treats this ache not as like a glitch in your psychology, but actually as the core feature of your human operating
I
system.
love that framing. It's like a system update for the soul, right?
Yeah. We are going to triangulate this ancient spiritual wisdom with modern psychology to understand exactly how we're supposed to navigate the space between our current reality and, well, that elusive place we're so homesick for.
And what's really fascinating here is how this framework, it doesn't demand blind faith.
No.
It doesn't ask you to just, turn off your critical thinking.
Right.
Instead, it triangulates that spiritual wisdom with the hard realities of the human mind. And it leads us to three core pillars, which we'll get into: trust, hope, and love.
Okay, let's unpack this, because the foundation of this whole system starts with this idea of an innate, hardwired compass.
Yes. The Arabic term for this in the tradition is fitra.
Kvitra.
Right. It translates to our natural primordial disposition. The core idea is that human beings are fundamentally engineered to seek truth. We are wired to yearn for a creator.
And there's this fascinating theological concept behind it, right? This idea of a premortal covenant.
Exactly. The idea that before human consciousness was ever, tethered to a physical body in this earthly dimension.
Before we were born here.
Right. Our souls existed in the direct, unmediated presence of the divine. We witnessed it.
So when we are thrust into this loud, chaotic physical world, we carry this subconscious memory of that pure proximity.
Yes, that's exactly it. That explains the homesickness. We are quite literally longing for our point of origin.
It reminds me of trying to fill an infinite hard drive with finite files.
Oh, that's a brilliant analogy.
Right, like you can download all the worldly success, the momentary pleasures, the wealth.
But those are finite.
Yeah, they only take up a few gigabytes. But because our origin was infinite, our longing is infinite, those finite things will just never permanently bridge the gap.
And that psychological mechanism is precisely what Viktor Frankl observed.
Oh, right, the psychiatrist.
Yeah, the psychiatrist and a Holocaust survivor. He observed this under the most horrific conditions imaginable. When we look at Frankl's work in logotherapy, he completely dismantled the prevailing psychological theories of his time.
Because Freud said it was all about pleasure.
Right. Freud argued the primary human driver was the will to pleasure, avoiding pain, seeking gratification. And then Nietzsche and Adler argued it was the will to power, dominance and control.
But Frankl saw something totally different in the concentration camps.
He really did. He noticed that the prisoners who survived the longest weren't necessarily the physically strongest, nor were they the ones who, managed to secure fleeting comforts.
The survivors were the ones who had a why. They had a will to meaning.
Yes. Frankl realized that humans possess this fundamental, just unquenchable drive to find meaning in their existence.
So if we connect that to the spiritual concept,
the fitra is that exact will to meaning. It's the spiritual DNA striving to return to its source. Without it, even a person living in a penthouse with limitless resources will, psychologically wither away from despair.
Okay, so we have this internal compass, this fitra, that is desperately spinning, trying to point us toward true north. But an internal compass is totally useless if you're dropped in the middle of a dense jungle without a map.
Right. You'd just be lost.
Exactly. How are we supposed to navigate? Because looking at the broad sweep of human history, it seems like we just wander in circles.
Well, the historical progression teaches that humanity was never actually abandoned in that jungle. God didn't leave humanity without a map. It's estimated that 124,000 prophets and messengers were sent to all nations across the globe throughout history.
Wait, 124,000?
Yeah. No society was left without a map tailored to their specific time, language, and stage of development.
Okay, wait, let me challenge that premise for a second.
Go chart.
If humanity was sent 124,000 guides, which is basically a massive global deployment of spiritual teachers, why does human history look like one long, uninterrupted cycle of war, exploitation, and frankly, spiritual amnesia? If the map was distributed that widely, why did the message fail to stick?
That's a completely fair question. But the message didn't inherently fail. It was subjected to the ultimate environmental hazard, which is human nature.
Ah, of course, we messed it up.
Basically, yeah. Over centuries, these original messages encountered massive political power struggles, the decay of oral traditions, the limits of translation.
In our need to, control things.
Exactly. Our deep-seated human desire to mold the incomprehensible into something we can control. Think of an original spiritual message, like a pure strand of DNA passed down through generations. Every time that DNA replicates across a new culture or empire, there's a risk of mutation.
And those mutations act like cultural radiation.
Precisely.
Like a king wants more authority, so he tweaks the interpretation, or a society can't grasp the abstract nature of the divine, so they project human traits onto it.
Right, and suddenly God is depicted as an angry, bearded man in the clouds who needs a nap, or who holds a newborn baby guilty of some ancient crime.
Right, so this mutation of the original spiritual DNA is what's referred to as tarif, or distortion.
Yes, and it's not always a malicious conspiracy. Often it's just the slow erosion of assimilation. The pure, absolute monotheism gets fragmented. Which brings us to the necessity of a final revelation.
The ultimate system update.
Exactly. The Quran acts as that final system update. It doesn't frame itself as a brand new religion arriving to conquer the old ones. It's the incorruptible restoration of the original genetic sequence.
It strips away the mutations, it doesn't delete the previous prophets, like Moses or Jesus.
No, not at all. Believing in them is actually mandatory.
Wow. So it just restores the pure, uncorrupted code of absolute monotheism, or tawhid.
And by restoring that original code, it establishes this beautiful concept known as the middle path, wasatiyya.
The middle path. Okay, tell me about that.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, this is a profoundly stabilizing force. Historically, you often find pendulum swings in tradition. Sometimes there's a heavy, almost exclusive emphasis on rigid laws, ritual purity, and strict justice.
Very rules-based.
Right. And then you get a reactionary swing toward an emphasis on unconditional grace and love, prioritizing the spirit of the law over the letter.
And the middle path brings those together.
It harmonizes them. It perfectly balances that strict focus on law and justice with the focus on unconditional grace. It acknowledges that, yes, humans need structure and rational action, but we are also deeply fragile and require divine grace.
It's the perfect balance. But, abstract theology only goes so far. If we want to understand how this perfectly balanced middle path actually operates in our daily lives, we have to examine its three practical pillars.
Yes, the lived experience of it.
Right. And I really want to start with the first pillar because I think it cures our modern burnout. It's trust, or tawakkul.
Tawakkul. This is an area where ancient spiritual language is frequently mistranslated, leading to massive misunderstandings.
Because modern society is obsessed with the illusion of control.
Oh, wholly obsessed.
Hustle culture tells us we must micromanage our careers, our health, our sleep cycles, and when we fail, it's entirely our fault. It leads directly to anxiety. But I have to push back here. Isn't religious trust just a fatalistic excuse to do nothing? Just let go and let God.
I am so glad you brought that up because no, absolutely not. That is a huge misconception. Tawakkul is not fatalism. It is best understood as active serenity.
Active serenity. I like that.
You must exhaust every rational, physical, and intellectual effort available to you first. You write the business plan, you study for the exam, you get the medical treatment. But the moment the action is complete, you completely sever the emotional cord between your effort and the ultimate outcome.
Oh, wow. So you leave the outcome to God.
Exactly. You acknowledge that your jurisdiction ends at your effort.
Which reminds me of that famous prophetic advice to the Bedouin man. He asked if he should tie his camel or trust in God, and the advice was, tie your camel and trust in Allah.
Yes. You have to tie the camel. You don't just leave it wandering and call that trust.
Right. And there's another incredibly vivid story that anchors this perfectly, the story of Hajar, or Hagar, in the desert.
It's one of the most powerful examples of tawakkul in history. She's stranded in the barren desert valley of Mecca, completely alone in a hostile, scorching landscape with her infant child, and the water has run out.
So if tawakkul was just fatalism, she would have just sat in the sand and prayed for water.
She would have just waited for the heavens to open. But she didn't. She places her child down and runs between two hills, Safa and Marwa. She sprints back and forth 7 times, frantic, exhausting every ounce of human effort.
Sprints! She's literally running until she can't anymore.
Yes. She pushes her body to the absolute brink of human endurance. And only after she reached her human limit did the Zamzam spring erupt from the earth. And it didn't even erupt where she was running. It appeared right at the feet of her child.
Wow. So her physical exertion wasn't a lack of trust. It was the physical manifestation of her trust.
Exactly.
I think about that when you're like sending out 50 resumes a week, tailoring every cover letter, networking until you're exhausted, and hearing nothing but silence. You are Hajar in the desert.
That's a perfect modern equivalent.
You're running between those hills. You don't stop running, but you have to divorce your self-worth from the silent inbox. Because the water doesn't come from your running. It comes from trusting the outcome after you've run.
And that is what cures our anxiety. Anxiety fundamentally arises from overestimating our control over the future. There's this beautiful analogy of the birds, too.
Oh, right. They don't just sit in the nest with their beaks open waiting for a miracle worm.
Right. They fly out at dawn with empty stomachs. They face the predators, the wind, the sheer unpredictability of the sky. They take massive action to survive, but they do it trusting they will return full.
They take action while trusting. So, okay, if tawakkul cures our anxiety about the future and our actions, how do we manage our internal feelings of guilt about our past? Every human being has a track record of mistakes.
Which brings us to the second pillar, hope, or Raja.
Hope. But this isn't just like a blanket concept of cheap grace, right?
No, it requires a very delicate balance. It's balanced with khalf, which translates to reverential awe. They're described as the two wings of a bird. If the wings of awe and hope are balanced, the soul flies straight. If one overpowers the other, you spiral.
Let me stop you there, because the word awe, or fear, so what does this all mean? Are we supposed to be terrified? Because a lot of modern listeners carry deep religious trauma from environments that basically presented God as an angry tyrant with a lightning bolt.
That's such an important clarification.
Yeah.
Khalf is not the neurotic panic of a tyrant. It's actually taqwa. The best psychological analogy is the respectful awe of a deeply loved, secure child who simply doesn't want to disappoint a devoted parent.
Ah, that completely changes the feeling of it.
Right. It's awe born of respect and love, not terror. It keeps you grounded so you don't become arrogant. But it's never meant to crush you. Because if you're crushed, the other wing hope can never expand.
And speaking of hope, there is this mind-blowing psychological insight from the materials regarding expectations. It's a hadith qudsi where God says, "I am as my servant expects me to be."
Yes. When you analyze that statement, it raises an important question about self-sabotage. It's essentially a masterclass in self-fulfilling schemas. Your internal expectation shapes your spiritual reality.
Right, like if we expect a petty, unforgiving universe, we close our own hearts. We view every hardship as a targeted punishment. We become bitter.
Exactly. But if you rewire your brain to expect infinite mercy and profound forgiveness, you open yourself up to experience exactly that.
So falling into absolute despair is actually a problem.
It's strictly forbidden.
Wait, really? Forbidden?
Yes, because despair arrogantly implies that your personal mistakes are somehow larger and more powerful than the Creator's infinite capacity to forgive.
Wow, I never thought about it like that. Feeling hopelessly sorry for yourself isn't just sad, it's actually arrogant.
Exactly. You are artificially limiting the unlimited. This is why Taba repentance simply means returning.
Returning, just turning around.
Yeah, you realize you took a wrong exit, you acknowledge the error, and you merge back onto the path. No endless, heavy self-flagellation required.
That takes so much shame out of the equation. Okay, so this awe and hope naturally evolve into the highest state of being, which is the third pillar, love, or mahaba.
Yes. And this is where we really have to challenge the modern pop culture definition of love.
Yeah, because we treat love as just passive good vibes, or a biochemical reaction, just a warm, fuzzy feeling you print on a coffee mug.
Right. But true divine love, mahaba, is not passive. It requires knowledge, or marifa, of God's names.
Like al-Wadud, the infinitely loving.
Exactly. You cannot truly love something you do not know. When you study those attributes, you realize the divine is the source of all affection. And this knowledge breeds intimacy, which demands tangible action. It's tied to following the prophetic example and having patience, Saber, through life's trials.
And it has to overflow to creation, right, like a social obligation.
Yes, we are stewards on earth, Khalifas. We aren't just consumers dropped here to extract resources.
So our love for the Creator must overflow into justice, respect, and care for people, for animals, for nature. You can't claim high spiritual love and then act like a tyrant to your neighbor.
Precisely. There is a profound standard here. None of you truly believes until he loves for his brother what he loves for himself.
That is the ultimate destruction of the human ego right there.
It really is. Love is the mystical bond that destroys that ego and connects the heavenly spheres directly to our rugged earthly realities.
Here's where it gets really interesting. When you pull all the way back, you see this isn't a rigid rule book. It's the exact navigation system our fitra has been homesick for all along.
Beautifully said.
It's beautifully updated to balance that active trust, tawakkul, that luminous hope, raja, and that transformative love, mahabba.
And if you are listening to this right now, I want to emphasize something with deep empathy. Perfection is never required in this system.
That is such a relief to hear.
Only sincere intention, your Naya. The present moment is always a chance for a new beginning, regardless of your past doubts or mistakes. The door to return is perpetually open.
I love that. Instead of our standard sign-off today, I know you brought a specific ancient prophetic prayer, a dua for the listener to carry into their day.
Yes, it did. It encapsulates everything we've talked about. It asks the Creator for His love, the love of those who love Him, and the ability to do the deeds that will allow you to reach that love.
That is beautiful. It asks for the feeling, the community, and the action all at once.
Exactly.
Well, to wrap up our deep dive today, we want to leave you with one final thought to mull over. Next time you feel that unexplainable homesickness in a quiet moment, ask yourself, is that just boredom, or is it your internal compass finally pointing true north?